Thank you everyone for joining us for the very last webinar of the year. Today we're going to be having a look at the mSupply dashboard, which is an open source tool that's available for visualizing supply chain data coming in from mSupply mobile and mSupply desktop sites around your country. So today's presenter is Jess, and Jess is one of our DTAC project managers. So I'll hand it over to Jess. In the meantime, if you've got any questions, of course, just pop them in the chat. We'll answer them in the chat and we'll come back to any important questions later on. So over to you, Jess. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So as Emily mentioned, today we're just going to give an introduction into the mSupply dashboard. Basically, this is a really useful tool. So we already know that mSupply has the reporting functions already built in, but this dashboard is a slightly more flexible and also a really visually easy tool to use. So that's why we're going to be going into it today. So before I get started, I just wanted to point out, currently there's two ways of accessing the dashboard. So the first way is that you can access the dashboard via a user login restricted web page. So that means that someone can access the dashboard and they don't actually have to have mSupply or be an mSupply user. So they could have a laptop and they could be out of the office or out of the warehouse and they could still access information about the supply chain. Alternatively, you can also access mSupply from version 5.05 from the dashboard itself. So I'm just going to show a little tiny video before we get started. Hopefully everyone can see. So in the newest version of mSupply, if you go into the reporting section, in the bottom right-hand corner, you can actually see the dashboard icon below. Now, if you've contacted mSupply and you already have a dashboard set up, then we're able to make sure that that button links automatically to your dashboard. So that's just one of the good features. All right. Now I'm going to just stop sharing this one and start sharing one of our actual dashboard screens that we'll be presenting with today. All right, now some of you may already be familiar or your country may have a dashboard set up, but just quickly, if your country doesn't already have a dashboard set up, you do need to contact the mSupply team and they will help set up the dashboard, as well as helping to, all of these icons you see on the screen are called panels. So they're able to help configure specific panels that are useful for your country. For example, if a country is only using mSupply in the warehouse, it's not going to be very useful to have a panel that's displaying information about dispensing or prescriptions. It's just going to be an empty panel. So contacting DTAC team and the mSupply team, we can help tailor the dashboard to be the best and most useful for your user case. All right, so here we can see we have the dashboard page. So this is just a demonstration dashboard today. It's not linked to any particular country. And what this page is doing, it just provides an overview, hopefully, of some of the information that we know about the supply chain from mSupply. Importantly, the dashboard can report in real time. So this dashboard is currently set to update every 2 minutes. So if your health facilities that are using mSupply are able to sync and update data to the central server, this can be showing the information in the real time. So it's just dependent, I guess, on the facility's internet connection, how frequently they're syncing, but this will always display the most current and up-to-date information. All right, so you can see this is just a generic page here. We've got a couple of different panels. So first things first, we can see up in the top section here, we have some filter icons. So all of the dashboard pages, we can customize how you would like to filter information. So for this one here, we can just see that we can customize the store that we'd like to see information about. So I'm going to select Rose Hospital. And once I've selected that, you can see that the dashboard's updated some information. Now, why I wanted to talk about being able to update and filtering specific information is because I guess I wanted to mention who is the dashboard designed for. So because the mSupply dashboard can be accessed via the login link or by users in mSupply, I'd have to say it can be used for either someone in the Ministry of Health that doesn't need to be actually using mSupply on a day-to-day basis, but rather needs to see bigger picture information that is helpful for making decisions related to supply chain. Maybe they need to have some information about making procurement decisions, but it can also be really useful on the day-to-day management side of things. So someone in the warehouse is able to quickly identify which stock is about to go, is about to expire, and for example, see which stock is also out of stock for a particular facility. So maybe getting on to sending an order out. All right, so some of the other panels we're going to go through today. So over on the left-hand side, we have a menu bar. Now this is the main navigation tool. So we've got the home page, which is this one here. Now another way to access our dashboards is we select the Manage button here, and you're able to see the folder of all of the dashboards that I currently have access to. So we can see these two folders here. So for example, if you wanted to have a dashboard that had more restricted information that only you wanted management or supervisory staff to see, this can be set up to have different permissions so that this can be a different folder where staff in general don't have access to that folder, only certain staff. So that's just something you can either set up yourselves using the mSupply docs, or you can contact the team. So you can click on any of these dashboards here and we can move through. So we'll go through to items. Now, there's a lot of information on display here. So one of the great things of having the filters is we can tailor it down to see more information that's relevant to whatever we're looking at. So potentially I only want to see information about a specific item. We can filter up here. All right, so up the top on the dashboard here, I've filtered the dermal product. Now I want to see how much stock each of our imaginary stores has on hand. So I can see here, just having a quick look, that Lilly Hospital has 0 stock on hand. So that's something, just having a quick look, that's something we could address. I can see that all the other stores have a little bit of stock. Now, for some of the information here, when there's not enough data in mSupply to calculate the average monthly consumption, for example, it'll just display no data. I'll filter this. Now, this tutorial today won't be specifically on how to configure and set up panels. So just wanted to note that. That's something that if you do want more information or assistance on, I would recommend contacting mSupply support, or alternatively, the docs also have some information. The mSupply Wikipedia docs have some information you can access. So down here, you can see for particular items, the average monthly consumption. You can also see the stock on hand. So this is the kind of information that might be useful for someone who's needing to do reporting to do a purchase order, or thinking about stock for the next 3 months. They might want to make sure they have enough stock on hand. One of the good features about the dashboard is that you're able to download these tables as CSV files. So we can select up here. You've got this little drop down arrow here. We can select inspect and data. And then over here, we can select download CSV, and that will download all of this information in a CSV folder so we can play around with Excel. All right. One of the other, so I just mentioned that the dashboard is obviously set up so that people can add their own panels. So just quickly wanted to show. So earlier today, I set up this imaginary information for my dashboard. So if someone in the organisation or IT would like to have the admin or privileges to be able to set up panels, that's not a problem. That's just a preference we can set up for their permissions. And they're able to easily add new panels and draw information from mSupply. You just need to have a little bit of background in SQL queries. So that's just one thing to note. However, again, our team is able to help set these up. Someone who has administrative privileges can also move and delete panels and edit them as needed. So for example, I can just edit this text. Maybe I just want to call it the treatment guidelines instead. And I can see that it's updated there. So the normal users won't have the ability to edit and change these, but that's just something else to consider when setting up the dashboard if someone would like to have access. Right, every time we make a change, though, we just have to save. Great, so one of the dashboards we've got here set up for us today is a mSupply performance report card. So this has been designed to hopefully provide managers and staff a way of proactively having a look at the mSupply for their store and seeing if there's anything they can do to help improve the supply chain performance. I'm going to jump in. All right, so this one here is our health supply chain performance report card for a particular store. So we can see up in the top left-hand corner, the store is main store Tulip, and it's showing for this month what are the kind of KPIs that the store is meeting. So we've already got set up in this report card a bunch of pre-conditioned KPIs. So we've got, out of the number of items the mSupply has for your health facility, how many of those are out of stock? We can see that 25% for this facility are out of stock, so that's why it's in red. Hopefully, we would hope that you could have more than 50% medicines availability. So if this number was to change, if you were to get an order in and we were to get 50%, we would see this go at least yellow, and then we would see the score increase over here. We've got days since last sync, days since stock take, days without a transaction entered, pending customer invoices, pending purchase orders, and supply invoices finalized within an appropriate time. So these kind of KPIs, they obviously change from month to month. So we can select up the top here to see, all right, we're doing pretty well this month. We can see we've got an 8 on the score. Most of our fields here are in green. There's a couple of things we could finish up. We have some 7 pending purchase orders that we could tidy up, and we could potentially improve. We've got 1 supply invoice that wasn't finalized within the appropriate time frame. So maybe that's something we can look at for improving for next month. But we can see that we've 0 days in stock take, so we've done a stock take today, so that's pretty good. But if we go back to select a different month, October, we can see back in October, it had been a while since we'd done a stock take. It had been a while since we'd done a sync, and we also hadn't entered a transaction for a while. So we can see that the score's completely changed. So go back down the bottom. Now, all of these KPIs, they lead into this performance score over in the top right-hand corner, and that's tracked on a monthly basis. So we can see for this store down the bottom that since June, they've done pretty well. They've been mostly average. So they've gone 8, 8, 8. We see over here September, October, November, that it seemed to go down a little. So that's something a Ministry of Health or the facility manager might have more context about, potentially that there was just a lot of things going on that month, and that's something we can investigate. The other really useful thing about this report card being used on a day-to-day basis is that it has these reports for expiring stock. So this one here generates which stock is going to go out within the next 3 months, and it has the name, the quantity, batch, as well as the location. So just pulling down from that CSV showing you how to download before, if you wanted to see and go through to make sure that the expiring stock was correct, making sure we're marking it, or making sure we're ordering more as necessary, we can download this. We can also organise for email reports to be generated to the staff members that need. So potentially this could go to someone who is doing purchase orders and procurement, or the warehouse staff that need to be making sure they're on top of what stock's expiring in the next couple of weeks. So that can be sent out weekly or every 2 weeks. The next list we have set up already is the items at risk of stock out. So what we've done is, this is just items that we've marked as critical items, or the essential items on the essential medicines list that are going out within the next 3 months. We're going to, based on this current stock known and the average monthly consumption, so the months on hand of stock, that we're not going to have enough. So we can see here that we have. Oh, that's not displaying correctly, I think. But it should only show items that will have less than 3 months worth of stock. I think for some reason that one's saying 72 months of stock for that one. And then last but not least, we have a list of items that are known to be out of stock. So we, as well as a calculated order quantity to help you with putting through purchase orders. Now we know that the information in the dashboard is only as good as the information actually in mSupply. So it's always important to double check this with actually what's on the shelves, making sure our stock takes and our known stock levels are correct. All right, so changed over to a different facility. And I just wanted to show an example of how this information changes on a live version. So I've just updated to have a stock take finalized. So in the next 2 minutes or so, that will update. We'll come back to that. And we should see that this bar here, instead of saying 89 days in stock take, will hopefully drop down to 0, just showing you that it actually does update as we're doing things in mSupply. So each of these report cards is generated for a specific facility. So that's something that the person managing a facility is able to have access and download any of these reports. So that way they're able to keep track for their particular store, which stock's going out of stock, and that they may need to order more stock. Otherwise, we also have the national support card. So I mentioned before that some of these reports that can be generated are going to be really useful for the Ministry of Health or maybe the pharmacy or warehouse manager. So this is the national report card. So it shows all of the health facilities and how they're tracking over time, and seeing potentially if there's anything we can identify that can be easily fixed or we can be improving on. So we can see here all the stores are doing quite well. We've got scores of 8s and 7s throughout here. I can see in our table here of snapshot of the KPIs that some of the stores, Lilly Hospital, Rose Hospital, they have quite a few supplier invoices that are not finalised. And I can see for the bottom 2 here that it's been quite a few days since they've had a requisition. What's jumping out most of all though, is that I've got a large percentage of items that are out of stock. So it could be just a flag that to make sure that we've got an order coming in. Something that could be an incentive down the bottom is that we're able to also rank based on how the stores are going. Now, it's by no means a competition, but it's a good indicator of maybe how one facility is going over another. It could be a sign that if one facility is always scoring really well and one facility potentially their KPIs aren't as good, that maybe that facility just needs some more training or maybe some assistance, and potentially that could be given from the stores that's the KPIs are doing really well. Last but not least, just again, we're able to track over time to see if there's any trends on how the stores are going based on these KPIs, as well as just on a national level. So we're able to use all of these charts to select and filter, so we can just select this one or only show Rose Hospital. We can see the national average. So we can see that we're definitely trending in the positive direction at the moment, which is really good. All right, now hopefully if I go back to the facility report card, I'll go to Rose Hospital. Great, and so previously this one here said that it was, I think it was 89 days since last stock take. Separately on my computer here, I just finalized a stock take and I can see that it's dropped down to 0, and now my score has gone up. So the score isn't set throughout the month, it gets reported on for the final day. So you have all the way through the beginning to the end of the month to make sure that your mSupply system is doing as well as it possibly can before that gets reported down in the bottom column here. Okay. Jump into some other things. So another way to navigate through the dashboard is up here. We can use the right-hand dashboards list. So this can be set up to allow users to easily navigate. We've got items, stock, and sync statistics here. We're going to jump into stock and have a look what's in that panel. Okay, so this is probably just a page that would be really useful for anyone who's working in, we'll change it to main store. We can see the warehouse as well as someone who's doing ordering. They're able to see current stock outs as well as months of stock on hand, and also able to see specific information about each item, as well as if any is being dispatched currently. So again, up the top here, we can filter based on a whole variety of things. In the items page here, we've set up a lot of filters. So we can filter things like critical stock, as well as sorry, I've lost where it is. Stock. Oh, I was going to show you how we can filter for cardiovascular stock. Maybe that's back on the other one. All right. Now, as I mentioned, so in that list, we could see that there wasn't the drop down for dispensed items. I've included dispensed items as something that I want to be separate, so only certain members of the team can see. This is the one that I wanted to filter. So we can see over here that we can filter specifically for, depending on how you've set up and categorized your mSupply. So for this demo file, we've used item departments. So we've got a whole list of the cardiovascular drugs. So this panel here is displaying dispensed items and information about that dispensing. So we're able to see which store a particular item was dispensed at, the item name, as well as the number of prescriptions, number of patients, and the quantity of the actual prescribed drugs. This can be useful to identify prescription trends, or potentially if we're not prescribing in line with the national guidelines and standard treatment guidelines. Now, this is only just one example of how a dashboard can be set up. So the report cards we've shown you in these panels here, they're not set in stone, and again, they can be tailored. So just to give an example of how a different dashboard can look, we have this dashboard here, and you can see automatically that it's a completely different white light color. We've got over here, we've got the map feature, which is really nice to see visually where stock is actually placed in a country, as well as these colors here have been set up to show, based on the stock on hand, how many months of stock are available. So we can see for green, that means we're doing all right. We have 48 months of stock available. If we were to select a different item, we can see that we're out of stock. We have 0 stock for these items here. So we can use master list to filter this, and we can select specific items. We're also able to track the stock value for a particular item, and also have this reported. So for each country, we just need to set up the map. We just obviously need to have some base information about where the facilities are located. We can do that through mSupply. So this is just a demonstration map in Ethiopia, but for any of the Pacific countries, we can have maps tailored. All right. The other thing I wanted to mention is the dashboard can be set up not just for the supply chain aspects of our medicine storage and distribution. So it's not just things like current stock levels, average monthly consumption, but we can also track the things in mSupply, such as managing assets, or also the cold chains storage. So if a country does use cold chain, we're able to track that through the dashboard. So we can see here that if we have the cold chain set up, the temperatures, we can see how what temperature the sensors are currently reporting. We can see that whether they're in breach or not, and we can also see if this is set up to match current stock by location, which stock has been affected by a breach. Right. So something else that's very useful for the dashboards is we're able to change the time periods that we're reporting. So up in the top right-hand corner, just like I mentioned, all of these filters are set up. This time filter is really good to see information based on different time periods. So one that's really useful for that is looking at, I'll go to average monthly consumption based on selected time. So maybe we want to see for more than the past 6 months, we want to have the AMC calculated the past 2 years. And we can see that that data has actually changed. So it's better in most cases to use the longest historical period of knowledge. But for some items, maybe it's better to use the most recent 12-month snapshot. So we could just change that to the last 1 year. We can see the dashboard will automatically update. So depending on the types of reports you're doing, you might want to change the filter. Yeah, you guys all may know a lot of this already if you've used the dashboard, but again, for specific tables, we can also filter and play around. So for example, this table here, we're able to use these little filter icons to select and display information. If we don't like the way something's looking, we can drag it out and make it bigger. So we can change the dashboards to be have as little or as much information. So you could have one with just one entire table, or you could have it split up like we have it at the moment and have quite a few different tables set up. We can also use the tables to organize our information. So if I want to have a look to see, I want to organize this table by items with the most stock to least stock, we can just click and it will automatically change that, similar to like in Excel. Up the top here, we have our tables. Again, so anytime you see these little icons, we can select these and it can filter for a particular item. Yeah, so I've made some changes. So I'm going to save those. Now, there's not too much left for me to go over today. Just wanted to mention another useful tool that could be helpful for IT staff or people that are supporting the system. We can able to see sync statistics. So let's say we have an mSupply store, a central warehouse. We also have a couple of facilities using mSupply mobile, and they only intermittently sync every now and then. Maybe we've seen that their data hasn't changed in quite some time and we haven't had any orders from them. And we haven't also had any contact. Maybe the easiest way to go about it is to log in and able to see when was the last time a store synced with mSupply. Because this is a demonstration system, it's not going to show any dates, but you could see, for example, if it was colored red and they haven't done a sync for a while, that maybe it'll be good to touch base with them and make sure that everything's okay. We can also track things like number of transactions over a time period to see potentially if a store has been really busy or they haven't had any transactions. Something that could flag would be having 0 transactions. We could see, are they still using mSupply to enter in their dispensing, or should we double check and check base and see what's going on there? All right, so just floating back over to the performance report card. By no means are these the only KPIs that we can report on, but this is how we've set it up for one. So this can be duplicated for any of our countries to implement this one as an easy tool for people to track how they're going based on some predefined values. So we hope to eventually have everyone in the green and using mSupply as best as possible. We know that obviously when items get out of stock, that these things are unavoidable. So we're hoping these reports here are able to help mitigate some of the stock outs and expiring stock. I think that's all from me at the moment with the dashboard. Again, if you don't have a country dashboard already set up, or you're not sure and you use mSupply whether you do have a dashboard set up, potentially talk to whoever is managing the facility and see if there is one, and whether you think that there would be any good reports that you would like to be easily accessed, that you would like to see in the dashboard, or yeah, just reach out to mSupply and see if we can get one set up. Does anyone have any questions at this point that we can help answer?
There's no questions in the chat so far, but feel free to come off mute or type in the chat. Maybe while people have a think about that, Jess, I've got one question. Are there any sort of minimum requirements that would be needed to be able to set up the dashboard?
Yes, so from my understanding, we need to be able to have the dashboard set up. We need to have what's called a static IP address for a country. So it needs to be a publicly reached IP address that we can, the mSupply server can reach down to. So before reaching out to mSupply support, or maybe putting that in a question, just giving them a bit of background to how your system's currently set up and your IT current situation would be very helpful. At this time, most countries currently are able to have the dashboard set up. The other thing is that's good to know is that because it's just running through the web, there's no issues with the dashboard going down. So if you're out of internet for the day and you just log in later, it's just going to show the most up-to-date information. So it's just basically relying on whatever information is being synced to the central server.
Great, thanks, Jess. We don't have any questions coming through, so I'm going to take that as it was a very thorough presentation, Jess, so thank you. If you do have any other questions that you think of later, feel free to email us and we can get back to you with any responses that we may have. But otherwise, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we wish you all a very happy Christmas, a happy holiday season, and we'll see you all next year.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Bye.